Imagine you've just had a great year at work. You got the promotion you wanted, or maybe your side project finally started seeing some real traction. For the first time in your life, you aren't checking your bank balance before you tap your card at the grocery store. You feel like you finally made it to that middle class or upper middle class bracket you always aimed for. But then you look at your savings account 6 months later. Even though you're earning $20,000 more than you were last year, your net worth hasn't actually moved. In fact, you feel more stressed about money now than you did when you were making less. You have better clothes, a nicer car, and you're eating at places that don't have paper napkins, but the actual foundation of your wealth is stagnant. You're stuck in this strange financial purgatory where you look rich to everyone else, but you feel broke in private. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of spending and why we get stuck at financial plateaus. If you're someone who feels like your lifestyle is swallowing your raises faster than you can bank them, consider subscribing if this video helps. Let's break this down because what's happening here isn't just about math. It's about a very specific, very expensive trap called the signal tax. We usually think about costs in terms of the price tag on an item. If a watch costs $5,000, we think the cost is $5,000. But the hidden cost of looking rich is actually the opportunity cost of the freedom that money could have bought you instead. Most people don't realize this, but looking wealthy is often the single greatest barrier to actually becoming wealthy. Let's look at our first scenario to see how this plays out in real numbers. Meet Sarah. Sarah earns $70,000 a year. She lives a modest life, drives a paid-off sedan, and manages to save $15,000 a year. After 5 years of disciplined living, Sarah has $75,000 in the bank. Then Sarah gets a major career jump to a role paying $120,000 a year. This is the moment she's been waiting for. She decides it's time to level up her life to match her new peer group. She leases a luxury SUV for $800 a month. She moves into a high-rise apartment that costs an extra $1,000 a month. She starts spending an extra $500 a month on networking dinners and better clothes. On paper, Sarah's income went up by $50,000, but her fixed expenses just went up by $27,600 a year. When you factor in the higher taxes on that $120,000 salary, Sarah's actual take-home increase is much smaller than she thought. Despite making nearly double what she used to, her actual savings rate barely budges. She's still only saving about $15,000 to $20,000 a year. The hidden cost here isn't just the $27,000 she's spending. The cost is the safety buffer. At $70,000, Sarah's $75,000 savings account could support her for 2 years if she lost her job. But at her new $120,000 lifestyle, that same $75,000 only lasts her about 10 months. By looking richer, Sarah actually made herself more financially fragile. She's now on a faster treadmill and she can't afford to step off. This is where the psychology of almost there kicks in. When we are starting out, we are highly motivated to save because we feel the weight of our poverty. But once we hit a certain level of comfort, maybe it's $50,000 or $100,000 in assets, that hunger starts to fade. We feel safe enough, so we start trading our future freedom for present-day status. We tell ourselves we earned it. And you did earn it. But the question is, who are you paying? Are you paying the car dealership and the landlord, or are you paying your future self? Most financial advice tells you to cut the coffee or stop buying avocado toast. I've always found that advice a bit condescending and, frankly, ineffective. Cutting out a $5 latte doesn't change your life. What changes your life is the 3 or 4 big leaks that are tied to your identity. The car, the house, the travel, and the social pressure to keep up. Let's look at a second scenario, the business owner's dilemma. Imagine Mark, who runs a successful marketing agency. Mark's business clears $250,000 in profit. Mark sees his friends buying vacation homes and driving high-end European sports cars. He feels the pressure to look the part to attract bigger clients. He decides to take $100,000 out of the business to fund a lifestyle upgrade. He buys the car, joins the country club, and upgrades his wardrobe. Now, let's look at the alternative choice. If Mark had reinvested that $100,000 back into his business, maybe by hiring a top-tier sales rep or upgrading his software, his business might have grown by 20%. That 20% growth on a $250,000 profit is an extra $50,000 in recurring annual income. By choosing to look rich today, Mark gave up a perpetual $50,000 raise every single year moving forward. This is opportunity cost blindness. We see the thing we are buying, but we are totally blind to the version of our lives that we are killing off to pay for it. There is a massive difference between rich and wealthy. Rich is an income level. It's the flow of money. Wealth is what you keep. It's the reservoir. You can be rich and have a net worth of zero. I've met people earning $500,000 a year who are 2 missed paychecks away from total ruin. They have the signal of wealth, the house, the watch, the private school tuition, but they have no substance. Why do we do this to ourselves? A lot of it comes down to anchoring to income. We tend to view our spending power as a reflection of our monthly paycheck rather than our total net worth. If the bank says you can afford a $4,000 mortgage, you assume you can afford a $4,000 mortgage. But the bank doesn't care about your retirement. They don't care about your stress levels. They only care if you can make the payment today. When you anchor your lifestyle to your income, you are essentially giving away your most productive years to the service of debt. Now, this is where it gets interesting. There is a social cost to not looking rich too. We live in a world that uses visual cues to judge competence and success. If you show up to a high-level meeting in a 15-year-old beat-up car, people might make assumptions about your success. This is a real pressure, and I want to acknowledge that. But there is a sweet spot of financial pragmatism. It's the point where you look put together enough to be respected, but you aren't spending so much that you're sabotaging your growth. Let's do a third numerical breakdown, focusing on the mid-career plateau. Consider 2 neighbors, David and Michael. Both are 40 years old and earn $150,000 a year. David lives in a house that costs $800,000. His monthly mortgage, taxes, and maintenance come to $6,000. He drives a new luxury SUV with a $900 payment. After all his looking rich expenses, David saves $1,000 a month. Michael lives in a house that costs $500,000. It's in a nice neighborhood, but it's not the best one. His total housing cost is $3,500. He drives a 5-year-old reliable truck that he bought with cash. Michael saves $5,000 a month. Over the next 10 years, David will have saved $120,000. Michael will have saved $600,000. Now, let's say at age 50, both of them face a corporate restructuring and lose their jobs. David is in a state of absolute terror. His expenses are so high that his $120,000 in savings will only last him about 14 months. He has to take the very first job offer he gets, even if it's a toxic environment or a pay cut. Michael, on the other hand, has $600,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that money generates $24,000 a year on its own. Michael doesn't just have 10 years of runway, he has the power to say no. He can wait 6 months for the perfect job, or he can start his own consultancy. The hidden cost of David looking rich for those 10 years was his autonomy. He traded his ability to walk away from a bad situation for the feeling of driving a luxury SUV in his 40s. Most people don't realize this, but the biggest luxury money can buy isn't a car or a house. It's the ability to not have to think about money. When you look rich, you often have to think about money constantly because you're managing a complex web of payments and expectations. When you are actually wealthy, you have the luxury of silence. Your money works quietly in the background and you don't have to perform for anyone. There's a psychological concept called loss aversion that makes this even harder. Once you start living a certain lifestyle, it feels like a physical loss to scale back. Selling the expensive car and buying a cheaper one feels like failure. Moving to a smaller house feels like a step backward. We become prisoners to our own upgrades. This is why the best financial move you can ever make is to underlive your income from the very beginning. If you get a $10,000 raise, take $8,000 of it and automate it directly into your investments. Live on the other $2,000. You still feel the win of the raise, but you haven't moved the goalposts of your lifestyle so far that you can't reach them anymore. I want to challenge the common advice that once you hit $100,000, it's all easy. The math of compounding does get easier, yes, but the psychological pressure often gets harder. At $100,000, you start to feel like you have something to lose. You might become more conservative with your career risks because you don't want to mess up the progress you've made. You might start comparing yourself to people who have $500,000. The status trap scales with you. The only way to win this game is to change the metric of success. Instead of measuring your success by what you can show to the world, start measuring it by your burn rate. How many months or years could you live exactly as you do now if your income went to zero tomorrow? That number, your time wealth, is the only number that actually matters for your happiness. Looking rich is a performance. Being wealthy is a private reality. The performance is exhausting. The reality is peaceful. I'm curious to hear where you are in this journey. Have you ever felt the pressure to level up your life because your income grew? Or have you ever made the hard choice to downsize so you could regain your freedom? Drop a comment below and let me know. I try to read as many as I can. If this perspective on the hidden costs of status helped you today, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. It helps the channel reach more people who are trying to navigate these same traps. Wealth isn't about the things you buy. It's about the things you no longer have to worry about. Stay grounded, keep your signal tax low, and I'll see you in the next one.